So we see here the rap artist called 50 Cent, and he's hanging upside down. You see that we've done the switch from the blue programming that's been running. Snoop Dogg has represented the blue programming, and it's been predominantly blue up until this point. So the flip side of that program is red. I want to explain while we're here another aspect of programming signals of how lighting is used. We've seen the big washes of color, red or blue or white or black, but they also use small amounts of color to show movement. So I want you to notice that 50 Cent is standing on the ceiling here, and you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines up on the ceiling where he is of white light. Movement is also used in programming. Direction, movement, that'll show inside the programmed person directions, because remember, inside there are whole structures that you'd be shocked, you know, that with nodes and lines and horizon lines and worlds, it's very complex inside the mind of the survivor. But right now I want to show you that you have the 5 lines of white light. They're very clean, they're crisp, 5 straight lines. That's actually a very militant calm. Again, this is a micro calm. It's small, it's not a big program. The red's the big program, but the white light lined up like that. When you see straight up and down lines, that's a militant calm. It's a very strong calm. We're going to watch that change. I'm going to switch to the next slide and show you how the directional change of these white lights on the ceiling happens. So notice on the ceiling, those clean, crisp, straight, militant white lights have now broken up into little patches of color. It's not bright, it's not crisp. What that means is that you've gone from a broader macro program to a smaller internal program. This is moving from a program to from a big program like red into a smaller program that runs inside of that program. So this is pointing to whoever follows 50 Cent, their back parts would see that change. It's like we're going from the broad macro red program, a militant line to say pay attention, and it breaks up into these smaller patterns of lights going into the micro program. Now I don't know what this means. I've not deprogrammed anybody that follows 50 Cent, but an example, it's not this example of what I mean by moving from a macro to a micro program. Let's say that somebody inside was on the Yellow Brick Road program. They would see inside their mind that they're walking on the Yellow Brick Road as we're accessing that program. This breakup of lighting change would indicate look to the side at a smaller program. It might say don't look at the Yellow Brick Road, look at a flower off to the side, maybe a poppy or something, and that you're going to make changes in that smaller program. So we see the lighting change yet again. This broad lighting means a pause in the program. So they took the big red program. Lighting was militant, pointed to the breakup to a smaller program inside of the red. They had the person's subconscious parts pay attention to that program, but this is a pause. This signal means pause. It's saying, I want you to look at it, I want you to notice it and pull it up, but we're not going to activate it. It's a pause signal. So you can line up programming, you can activate it, but here it's brought up and put on pause. And then they have 50 Cent come off the ceiling and upright himself, and the girls pretend that they're going to do the same thing. So in order for us to better understand this red program, that's being accessed with the rapper 50 Cent, we're going to need to go back to his original video in this album. That's going to give us the information. It's going to show us the nature of this trauma in this program, the script in the program. Because here in the halftime show, when they're doing these songs and these rappers, you're just getting enough of the song to show to the programmed people watching the halftime show that they're wanting to access that particular play in their programming book. So this slide that I have here is the original 50 Cent album where he sang this song in the club. And so in the beginning of this video, you have this Hummer, this black Hummer that's driving in the middle of nowhere. And it pops up on the screen in green, like we have written here. It says somewhere. And so they're driving to this location, and the location that they're driving to at the beginning of the video is called Shady Aftermath Artist Development Center. And so this is what you see up here on the screen. I want you to notice that it too is a dome. It's dome shaped. You keep seeing that throughout these songs. I also want to know that, to let you guys know, if you've not read much about the programming centers, places like China Lake and Ridgecrest and all these different facilities in the middle of nowhere where all types of military Delta programming, all the color programming, when you're doing the beginning base level white and black programming and putting in whole big programs, they take people to these places in the middle of nowhere. And that's what this is implying in this video. So if you look up the plot of In Da Club, the original video, here's the script. It says this video takes place in a fictional hip-hop boot camp known as the Shady Aftermath Artist Development Center. The video begins with a black Hummer driving to the facility at an unknown location. And then here we see video clips from Eminem's single Without Me are seen playing in the entrance on a flat screen TV. So this is a picture of having just entered the laboratory, the programming facility, and you see up on the TV screen as this doctor's entering in his white lab coat, Eminem singing. Eminem is a programmer, we're going to see in this video, as he very well may be in real life. I'm not going to make that claim, but that's what it implies. And so then a person, if you wanted to get into more details following the rabbit trail, you would go look at what song is being sung here by Eminem. It's called Without Me. I'm not going to go down that road, but I will say that in that song, see, it's playing on a TV. TV's all around like it's programming. That song Without Me, it talks in that song about doctors in the hospital electrocuting Eminem when he doesn't do what he's told. These are common practices in programming, electrocution. It talks about how rappers are used to program the minds of kids in the public, and that without him the bigwigs couldn't do the work that they do. That song by Eminem playing here talks about Dick Cheney and his wife partaking in this. And it talks about getting called up, him as like a Delta, which is what they would. Delta is the military programming. It's the assassin army type programming. It talks about in that video of Eminem getting called by the higher ups to carry out some plans. So again, we just have another picture showing the nature of this development center, the Aftermath Development Center. You see 50 Cent, he's in this kind of chamber. Doctors and nurses are working on him. You see Eminem up here in the what do you call it? He's overseeing. He's in a viewing room, like this guy's in an operating room. Again, showing the nature of the programming happening. And then they do a close-up here where they show you working in the back of 50 Cent. Like, he's transhuman. It's like showing he's part machine. It's interesting that when you look up the history of 50 Cent, he's been shot 9 times doing gang-related work. It makes you wonder. It's like, you know, is this trying to show that, you know, he's transhumanism? Is he some kind of clone? Was his consciousness downloaded into this machine? Of course, you know, we're getting into some deep stuff here, but people that I work with and others who work with survivors, all sorts of claims like that. The claim is common, that it already exists, the ability to download human consciousness into a computer. So I don't know, you can whatever you want to surmise from what this means. And here you see Eminem and Dre. They're looking down into the laboratory from the observing balcony up there. You see Dr. Dre in every one of these original videos. Like, he is like the god. I mean, if he's not a handler way up, I have no idea what he would be. But that's what the implications are. The implication would be that Eminem is also a programmer as well. He's working hand in hand, programming this newer generation, like 50 Cent and others. There's an army. When you get into the gangs and the militant army that's been created by the elite, the tales that I've heard and others as well, I can't say because I've not worked or seen any, but that not everybody's human. Not everybody in this army they're going to be sending out is human. So we see here in the original video of 50 Cent, him hanging upside down. That's where the halftime show where you see him hanging upside down comes from. This is going to be probably a hard concept to understand if you've not seen my Astroworld video about the different dimensions. But notice, like, he was in the halftime show, he's hanging upside down with the color red bathed in that light. Here it's blue. This is a nod to the different realms. Remember that in the Astro World I teach you how blue is the galaxy program. That represents the here and now world. The red programming represents the second heaven in that dimension, in the second heaven dimension. And these two programs can be flipped back and forth. So the fact that it's blue here, that you're seeing blue, it's implying that this programming is taking place in the earth realm, in the blue here and now realm. With programming, once you've got the trauma in the mind of the client, of the victim, you don't even have to bring them back to the lab. You can use that original base trauma and move it to the parts in the other realm. So let's say like 50 Cent really was here in the blue earth realm, getting this trauma put in his mind. When the programmer wants to put parts in the other realm, in the heavenly celestial realm, the second heaven where Satan reigns, he can have them visualize or partake of the original trauma that happened on earth, and by using the pain of that trauma, have them sent over to the other realm. I know this sounds crazy. Hopefully you can follow it. But that's what this is showing here, that originally the programming really did take place here in the blue. And then we see over in the halftime show the same scene of 50 Cent hanging upside down, and it's bathed in red light. So whoever's following 50 Cent and they're accessing this programming, they're going to have the memory of being hung upside down and the trauma and the script and the training that goes with that. But in the Super Bowl, it's now bathed in red light. It's delta. Red is delta assassin programming. Red is also beta sex programming. And take note that he's in like a gym facility. It shows 50 Cent in this original video working out, training, building muscle. It's like they're building him up to be a soldier, just to be like strong and militant. We see within this whole lab, constantly it's bathed in white and black. You see the white bandana around 50 Cent's head. That's like base programming. Remember, the most traumatic tortures and traumas are in the black and white program. And so that's letting us know here at this facility, it's doing the base programming traumas that will then be used for the rest of the programming. You have these really, really bad programming traumas in black and white. So 50 Cent can go back home after this facility training, and programmers that are at home or even from a distance can use the traumas that happened here to make changes in the other programming. The threat of having to remember these horrible black and white traumas is what motivates fragmented parts of the mind that are different colors, red and blue, to obey, because subconsciously they remember how bad it was in the black and white programming. And so that black and white based programming is the motivation for the parts in all the other colors and all the other programming systems to obey. So when you see a comm, you'll see me tweet out some comms that I might decode where I say they're pointing you back to base program. They're taking people back to the memories of these horrible things. It makes them reset. It makes them harassed, that this is what will happen if they don't obey. It's like a reset. Go back to base program. Remember what happened, you better obey. So after they've had this programming session with the doctors and the programmers with 50 Cent, they have him dressed up with his gang here, and they're having him walk into a club. So that's what you see. It's interesting to me that he is dressed in tan. We see some militant soldiers in the Super Bowl halftime show that are dressed in khaki. I know it's a nod to the song California Love, that Dr. Dre says that he still likes his khakis creased and cuffed. But I have never seen the color tan used. It's like purple. It's almost like they've only pulled it out here. They only use it at the end. I don't know what it means. I know it's important. And we see it here played throughout the rest of this original video with 50 Cent. And then again, we see it in the soldiers near the end of the halftime show that are dancing on the field. And I do not know what that tan color means. I guess we're about to figure it out. But here's 50 Cent. And they have now sending him into a club. He's going to take the programming of what's just been put and placed into him, and he's carrying it to the public. He's into club. He's going into the club to release the programming put in him. So this is a back shot of the slide I just showed you. Which was the front side of 50 Cent walking into the club. And here's what it looks like from the back. You see he's emerging from what looks like a tunnel of the blue program, and he's walking into the dance floor, which is bathed in red light. So we're moving from rounds. He's moving from the here and now. It represents a whole bunch of things. He's moving from the here and now programming of galaxy. He's crossing over that realm into the Delta dance floor. It can be, it represents a couple things. It represents him switching in his mind from blue to the Delta red program. He's carrying what was put in him over to that section of his mind inside himself. It also means that when he leaves this facility, it's like him carrying it to the public. Those of you who watched my Astro World video, this is a good rendition here of how the world's set up of red and blue. Remember I talked about you have the red galaxy the red star program and the blue galaxy program, and that sitting between those two programs are the entities Sybil and Janus, and it requires a sacrifice to cross over. That's also simulated here. So when you see these programs, you got the macro meaning and the micro meaning. But back to the macro meaning. Here he was just programmed. He's crossing over now into the red programming, the Delta assassin violence type program. So I didn't put the pictures up, but after 50 Cent enters into the red programming of the club, it shows him dancing and intermingling with, you know, all the people that are there. And then it begins to show him like hanging out with some groups of people in maybe like a side room of the dance club. And so here he is with this young lady. You still see here on the top, which is interesting, his head is the black and white programming. It's covered with the tan and the black, and underneath is the white. This young lady's dressed in white. It's letting us know he's still in base programming, and we're going to see this in the next slide. He entered into the club, but he's really still in the lab getting programmed. The dance floor was a simulation, which is a part of his programming. So that's why the black and white base programming is still happening, base trauma programming. It's interesting, he has on a hat that says New York. In the Super Bowl halftime show, all of the rappers that are in the show were from the West Coast. And so he's originally from the East Coast, 50 Cent is. And so we see this in that programming. So in the halftime show where 50 Cent is shown in the red hanging upside down, he's going to probably be a nod to the East Coast people that follow him in the gang programming on the East Coast, because that's what he represents. And he's the only one in the show that's from the East Coast that I know of. So this is the slide that shows us that 50 Cent is still in the laboratory. He's still at the Aftermath Center, Development Center. You see the programmers, Dre and Eminem, are watching him through a two-way mirror. So and it's bathed in blue on the right side. It's still some blue up front here with the guys in this shot. But it lets you know that he's still being programmed. He didn't leave the lab. Part of his programming is they're showing him what to do and how he's supposed to behave when he does get out on the dance floor. Again, I think that's why that black and white hat, that this is not a real out in the world scenario. He's still in the lab being programmed. So now we're back to the halftime show. I just wanted you to see the original video, which shows the programming, it shows the script, it shows the type of trauma that's being accessed at this halftime show by 50 Cent. See him in the back in the car with the red. And so at the end of the halftime show, he has now, it gives a shot of it playing out on the streets. So the coding that happened about 50 Cent and his followers in that car with red, at the end of his song, it's showing and panning out to the city streets, and you see his programming being carried out. There's this militant kind of guy dressed in khaki and white and the black there. It's simulating that what he is coding for is carried out into the streets. This is near the end of his set on the halftime show. This is a picture of the ending of the set of 50 Cent on the halftime show. Note he's dressed in black and white, just like he was in the original video, letting people know it went back to the base laboratory programming, but is now bathed in red. All of the dancers in 50 Cent in their set, and they look up because they're letting us know they're about to switch back up top to the blue programming or to the place that's in the heavenly realm where the gods are. I think that Mary J Blige is coming up next. So before we look at the set at the halftime show done by Mary J Blige, she is up on top of the buildings. Let's look back to the nod to Thunderdome. She has many in her videos, different hairstyles and wigs, but it's interesting that there's a resemblance here. It's a loose resemblance, but we know we have the Thunderdome theme. Look at Tina Turner in the movie Mad Max Thunderdome. She's got this blonde wig dressed in silver. Here's Mary J Blige wearing a blonde wig dressed in silver. The lady, Tina Turner, is called Entity in the Mad Max video. Interesting that she's called an entity, but she rules the Bartertown city. She's wearing those big hoop earrings, which so is Mary J Blige. I saw when I was researching they're called Sister Love earrings, which is kind of interesting. But I just wanted to show you that loose resemblance there back to the Thunderdome video. And I want to talk a little bit about color programming here. I pulled up Svali, who's a former programmer of Survivors, and it's the list of her and the different colors as far as what type of parts, when they are a particular color, that they identify with, the nature of those parts. And silver, parts that are made to believe that they're the color silver, are for the satanic altars who perform high-level satanic rituals. They are your mothers of darkness. And so it's interesting that the character of Tina Turner is called Anti-Entity. So entity implying a spirit or a goddess. And it's a mother of darkness color, which is a high-ranking occult witch. So here's Mary J Blige with her army of people representing her followers, her army that carries out her programming. Again, she's dressed in silver. Parts that identify themselves with silver are, the color is the satanic altars who perform high-level satanic rituals, like a mother of darkness. Silver also is a color of the moon, representing the moon, and the gold, like we saw with Dr. Dre, is a sun. It's even superior to the silver color. So here she's dressed in that. That's significant. She's going to have her own group of followers that when people are watching the Super Bowl that are programmed, they've been programmed to follow all the comms of Mary J Blige, and so they're going to be watching her. And she immediately, when she comes up, you see the purple behind her, the light of purple. That's the first time that we really see this in the Super Bowl. We've had the blue, that was the main focus with Snoop Dogg, and then we saw it switch to red for the followers of 50 Cent, and now for the first time we see the color purple. And it's immediate, like it just goes up immediately, the purple lighting. There's no instruction given yet except the color purple, the color silver. It's just an immediate switch. Okay, and then in this next segment, I want you to notice the purple all of a sudden now has straight up and down white lines. Remember we talked about how that's a very militant calm, it's very strong. So now the purple that just came up for the followers of Mary J. Blige have this militant, straight up and down white lines as a calm. It's like, go purple. You know, instantly we're going to purple programming. The song that she's singing is called Family Affair. Remember, this was a family reunion. This is a family affair. And the song that she's singing, it's really about saying, we're not going to fight. This is a family affair. It's about opening you up, the song says. Opening up yourself with drugs. And it's a song about saying there's going to be peace. We want no hating, no hollering. Here we're just getting crunk in the video. She keeps saying that over and over in the song The Family Affair. And so this purple calm is geared towards that. It's geared towards we're a family. It's a family affair. So I don't know if it's an assault on the family. If you guys look back to, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see how I put up comms of Biden with Billie Eilish and her brother. And he's standing between the two of them in the Twitter post, Biden is. And it's like he's standing between the family. And I'm not going to get into it all here. And also the Kanye West tweet recently with his poster of him and his ex-wife Kim Kardashian, and there's a divide and it says Civil War on the family. So those are significant too. And so here I'm just throwing that in there. You can see me post on Twitter about the attack on the family comms that are going out by Kanye and President Biden. So here she's singing also about the family and a family affair and how she's wanting peace, but it's peace through drugs is what the song is about. Talking about getting crunk. Crunk is like a word when you look it up in the Urban Dictionary that's like a cross between chronic and drunk. Dr. Dre has an album called Chronic, or a song called Chronic. Chronic is like when you just are so high, so messed up. Yeah, and then drunk at the same time. I'm not going to get into all that. And her name, even Mary Jane, is a nod to pot. Pot's called Mary Jane back in the day. So this song is about go to peace. Let's just be at peace. Let's get crunk. It's in programming. They have a programming that they put in even in the littlest of children. I've taken it out of kids who were like 3 and 4 years old. They put in an addiction entity that when memories start coming back and they're too strong, you go to this part of the program about getting drunk and high to anesthetize you till you can get back to your programmer to get a reset. And you say, well, how would kids who are in preschool get drunk? Well, they have an altar inside while the kid's at school who's highly drugged or highly drunk, a split part of the mind when they're not with the parent. And so you can have the child access that memory and literally feel the drunkenness, because it's an isolated trauma memory, in your home without drinking any type of alcohol or drugs. So that's common when you're about to go nuts and you can barely handle it because memories are bleeding through, you're struggling. They have you go to your addiction programming, your drugs and your alcohol programming as a way to cope, especially when you're feeling suicidal. That's where the default go to. And so she's simulating that here in this family affair song. And so here we have Mary J. Blige transition to a song that's the total polar opposite of Family Affair. It's called No More Drama. The color switches. You see her beginning to be bathed in blue again. behind her, a light blue color is emerging. There's not much, the main color light behind her, it's got a little blue at the bottom. It's starting to transition back to the blue. She's singing in this song, you know, and saying everything's fine, no more games, I'm gonna be fine. The No More Drama song, I believe, is the polar opposite of the previous song about the family, you know, family affair and being high and chilled and getting crunk. And then she switches and transitions over to the song No More Drama. When you look up that song, the inspiration for that song, No More Drama, it says it came from Blige's own confused and hectic life. In a later interview, she confessed to living a life of alcohol and drug abuse at the time as a result of getting involved in a series of abusive relationships. The album was an attempt to break free from this vicious circle, which was a result of a deprived childhood. So this other song is the attempt to break out of the addiction cycle that was on the other side of the getting high. And so she's singing, I'm okay, everything's all right, escaping the drama. But you see light blue emerging behind her, and the color of light blue has to do with alters in charge of the way the system runs. And it's just very light behind her. So you see the light blue, and then it's going to turn all blue in just a second. So then you get this big flash of blue, returning back to the blue program, and Mary J. Blige begins to lose it. I'm not going to put the pictures up, but she starts to say things like, my mind, you know, I gotta have peace, and she starts bending down and crouching down. It's like she's losing it. She's going bonkers. It's too much. The weight of it. She can't bear it. And then Mary J. Blige lets out this feral scream as she's like holding her head, and then she just falls down. So like here she is, she's like out. I don't know if it means she's dead or it's just knocking out that program, but she's out of the game. And you see the stairwells make these two militant black lines again, and she's right in the middle with the white. It's like going back to the base programming, where she whatever the followers of Mary J. Blige have gone back to those very traumatic base programming, probably a near-death experience or going nuts, maybe something like Crazy Alice, but that's what that symbolizes. She's coding for her people. And you begin to see up top there some boxes that we're going to now pan out to. So in a second, well, let me do that on the next slide. So then we see the camera pan out again. It's not micro and focused in like on Mary Blige. That was a micro program, like just for Mary J. Blige followers. So when we pan out like this and we see these boxes that have people in them, we're going to show that in a minute. It's showing this is more global programming. This is going to affect a larger group of people again. When the camera pans out, it's wide and global. It's meant to be a global message to all the followers. But when you pan in the camera like it was on Mary Blige, it's a micro, it's a smaller group of people. So we know that this message and this communication has a more global impact and scale. Notice that we have boxes here. There's rows of 6, 5, 7, 6, 6. That's going to be a code in itself. The rows, numbers are used in coding. When you get down to that level, like that's like programmers will give those codes numbers 3 times to access specific areas of their system, to call up parts for programming. So whatever this number 65766 would have to be said 3 or 4 times. That's what's represented here. This accesses this part of the system. Notice that it is on top of the ley lines of the city. I was told also by somebody that I consulted with this that this black represents again the black hole, that this calm is coming through this portal of the black hole. So we now see this army rising up out of those boxes. They have Dre Day sashes on them. Dr. Dre's real name is Andre, so Dre is like a nickname from that. If you look up the meaning of his name, it means man warrior. So I believe that Dre Day here, sashes, it's like these men warrior, this man warrior day, Dre Day, man war day, war on man day, is rising up out of this box. They all have the white hair. You see that if we looked in the original video of California Love, there were lots of people with hair, African Americans with hair, colored gray and white like this. I think that's a nod back to, remember where we talked about the 5 different ages that the Harriet spoke of, and the Iron Age. It says it went from the Golden Age, which is what we believe is being promised here by Dre, acting as Cronus, that he's going to return back to the Golden Age. But the final age before that was the Iron Age. And each age got worse and worse and more evil was on the earth. And it said the worst was the Iron Age, and that babies would be born with white or gray hair because it's just such a stressful time. And so this is a nod back to that video of Thunderdome that was done in the California Love Dr. Dre and Tupac video. And I think it's a nod back to the age, the end of the Iron Age, when it's so horrible, before the dawning of the Golden Age. You notice that it's beginning in the background up top to start to emerge red again. Red is like a rage, a release the beast, delta, army militant color. It also is beta and sex, but that's not the context that we have here. We notice up here that it's happening in front of the Eve After Dark. That was a real nightclub, I believe, but it's letting us know these guys are coming out after dark. This militant army rising up. It's Dre's army, Dre Day. So we see the army emerge out of the box. They're coming out onto the streets after dark. The red tent comes in now, where it was on hold before. Remember, we had the all blue comms with Snoop Dogg, and so we first saw red coming out with 50 Cent, but we had the pause. But now we're having, it's not on hold anymore. So they escape and come out of the box, and we're going to hear Kendrick Lamar sing. He's right in the middle, getting ready to emerge up. But Lamar's followers, he's a younger rapper. He represents the most recent rappers. He's not old school. And Lamar's program is going to be laid on top of Snoop's blue program, which is on top of the city. So Snoop's was on top of the city, and then now they're laying on top of that the calm for the red, this red army. This is ordering Dre's people, and it's superimposed on top of Snoop's blue program. Dre is now in charge of Compton. You see this, them dance to these like a primitive ritual. If you remember, I spoke about these entities called the Curities. that when you cross between the red and the blue programming, Sybil is one of the gods there. To worship her, these primal dances were done by these entities called the Curities, and they would be rhythmic, and it would be have drum beats, and there's a semblance to this. It's the Curities. You can look that up. So here we have Kendrick Lamar. He emerges out of this army of Dre Day army. He's the younger guy on the block. He's another rapper that was made and created by Dr. Dre. He's known for making these stars, Dr. Dre, as we saw back in the lab. So Lamar is singing a song called All Right. And it keeps saying, we gonna be all right. We gonna be all right. He keeps saying it over and over again. So like in the front, like there's inciting war. They're inciting a militant move. And on the front, he's singing, it's gonna be all right. We're gonna be all right. This mantra of we gonna be all right was, it says, that the Black Lives Matter movement of 2015, the protest, as the Black Lives Matter activists over America chanted this song. So this programming is in them of we're going to be all right. Black Lives Matter movement is a program in and of itself. And so he's using the we going to be all right. It's activating that Black Lives Matter, that program. If you look at the history of the song that he wrote, the album is called To Pimp a Butterfly. A Butterfly is a really dark album. It's about programming. It's about the hauntings of being programmed. It's so sad to go through these songs. It just like it breaks my heart because it just reminds me of what these folks have been through. Yes, they're dangerous, and yes, they're weaponized to come and destroy us as a nation. But I have to hold that reality while holding the horrible stuff that they've been through. It just is so sad. The mom in me is like, you know, wants to help them heal. We're going to have this on our hands in the days ahead because there's going to be so many of these people coming out and coming to the church. So that was a little side note. So let's get back to Lamar. He's singing the song, it's going to be all right. Everything's going to be all right on the front. People are going to die. Murder's going to happen. Violence is going to be incited. Civil unrest. But like he's telling the front parts and encouraging them, it's going to be all right. We're going to do this, but it's going to be all right. And to pimp a butterfly represents the soul in a lot of cultures. It represents the psyche. And so it's about pimping, the buying, the selling, and the trading of the fragmented human soul. This song, We're Gonna Be Alright, is, if you read all the lyrics, I'm not going to get into it all, but it's about the battle of the mind with the evil, violent, and wicked stuff that they do, and then going to God. Going to God for mercy, trying to go to God for help, but then this whole battle on the other side of all the violence and the trauma and the evil. He also says in here, it's not in the original song, but he talks about like 30 summers in the making. Did you forget about Dre? And I'm talking NWA. Did you forget about Dre? I think that's a nod back to where he talks about the 30 summers in the making. Summertime getting your programming. That's related to Dre. I don't know how many of these ended up back at that Dre Center. What was it called? Aftermath. Shady Aftermath something center. I've forgotten it. But he's talking about 30 summers in the making. Did you forget about Dre? It's like he's remembering them about the handler, the programmer who's Dre. And I'm talking about NWA. That stands for Niggers with Attitude. Did you forget about Dre? So it's like really prompting that into people to remember. We gonna be all right. Gotta remember your programming. Gotta remember Dre. Don't forget about him. He's in charge if you don't obey. So anyway, that's what he's singing about. And so they all get into this very militant, ritualistic type of dance on the city. And the camera pans out. Again, it's like a global thing. You see them making all kinds of shapes and probably sigils, different symbols in that programming. I don't know what they are, but they get into all these various designs while they're dancing over the city. Those would be cues to the programming of specific people to activate this Dre Day man-war comms. And of course, like they've done after every song, they pan back to Dre up at the mixing board showing, I'm in charge. I am the big guy. I am the God. I am in charge of overseeing all of this over the city of Compton. So we now see, as you pan out, we're about to have Eminem come up and sing his song, You Better Lose Yourself. But these are Eminem followers, and you see them sitting in hoodies. They're outside the city of Compton. So it would say to me that Eminem's followers and people are not necessarily in Compton, but they're surrounding that city. They're called in. They're pulling in Eminem as a handler and a programmer. And now his people are surrounding the city as well. They're sitting there with their hoodies on. There's a hoodie program that I've talked about in previous videos. Each of Eminem's people have their own light. You see them with their light. They're bringing their essence, they're bringing their light, their power, their energy into this. So it shows them sitting out there before Eminem comes on. In the song that's getting ready to be sung, well, let me go to the next slide. So you see an explosion that happens at the end of the city block there. Before Eminem emerges, it represents a few things. One, it represents that Dr. Dre is giving Eminem a little bit of power. He's exploding. He's doing his work. You see again Eminem's people in hoodies in the foreground. Also, the explosion that was on the train in the scene of Thunderdome happens. This may transpire to a code for an explosion on the outskirts of the city here in Compton that's going to be done by Eminem's folks. I don't know that for sure, but that's what they're showing here. And Eminem emerges out of the blast. Here he appears up on top like a god dressed in black, just like Dre was. He's got a measure of power. He's about to code and speak to his people, his followers. You see the small red lights in the audience behind Eminem. He begins to sing. He had a whole movie about this song, but You Better Lose Yourself. It's about all that he had to go through to become a star, a rapper, all the abuse, all the drama that he had to do to get to the place that he's at. But he's singing this song after the army, the militant Dre Day army came out, and it's like he's letting them know, you got one shot at this. He keeps saying it over and over. You've only got one shot. Once the music starts, you better lose yourself in it, not look back, and go forward with it. And so I'm going to read some of the lyrics of this song, You Better Lose Yourself. It says, you better lose yourself in the music. The moment you own it, you better never let go. You only get one shot. Don't miss your chance to blow. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime. You better lose yourself in the music. The moment you own it, you better never let it go. You only got one shot. Don't miss your chance to blow. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime. You better. And then it says, his soul is escaping through this hole that is gaping. This world is mine for the taking. Make me king as we move toward a new world order. And so that's what this is about. He's inciting this army that was just out. He's speaking to his army. He's speaking related to the Dre army. We got one shot at this for the New World Order. He talks about the soul escaping through that gaping hole. Remember how I said that? The boxes that were black in the beginning where the camera panned out is a nod to coming through that portal of the black hole. They're entities that are solicited and drawn in to do this act of war. It's not just in human strength. They're summoning entities through the black hole. Again, here's Eminem showing that you got one shot, and he's just pumping them up. We've got one shot at this. Once this program's activated, don't look back. You got to go all the way. Big flash of red being the delta, the violence, the release the beasts. You see all the people out on the field here. He looks at his watch, checking the time. I think that's a signal as well, like be watching your watch. This time's close. This is, make sure that you're watching. And there's the activation. Everybody's running into the city. All of the people that were Eminem's people that were on the outskirts of the city, that code goes, come on in. Come on in. Everybody make some noise. Run into the city of Compton. I'd be watching Compton. I don't know if it's going to turn into a Minneapolis situation, but they're calling in the reinforcements. Again, remember they said it was not battling of territories, but that the main message here was it was a reunion. It was a joining of forces, it said in the articles. And so we see that here. Eminem's forces who are not ruling and dominating Compton, they're outside the city, but they're coming in to join the forces with Dre and him overseeing that city. Another big flash of red over the city, all the people out and about there. And everybody's just going wild. It's like this is the big finale. They're being pumped up by that song. You see them bringing out the horns. It's Eminem's just pumping everybody up. This is like the big finale. This is the big show. This ending of the Iron Age, this violence that's going to come out is meant to, it's going to bring in the promise of Dre's golden age back again to where people don't have to work and they don't have to provide and feed for themselves. But before that, it's the ending of the Iron Age here, where it's like, it's just chaos and mayhem. And then again, a point back to the master, the God who's in charge. Dre himself is pointing up to the people. You got one chance at this. This is one shot for us to bring in the New World Order. Again, just another showing the horns and how they just bring out everything, all the shots. I'm sure the horns represent something, but I didn't look that up. And then it ends back with the blue light again. We return back to the beginning, the blue. We see Eminem take a knee. That's him saying, I did what you asked me to do. I called my people onto the city. We did what we have to do. I'm bowing my knee to Dre. And again, it's was the family reunion of the Titans and the Olympians, but the Titans are taking back over. So the Olympians bow on the macro level of this message. They bow to the Titan Cronus, the leader of the Titans, Dre. And he's sitting down, he's playing the music. So the song that Dre was playing on the piano before he goes back up top and he merges with Snoop Dogg is he was playing the intro to Still Dre. It's a nod back to like I'm back. Dre's in control. I'm still running the show. And just notice, here's the khaki army, the army that's dressed in khaki color. Again, that tan color that we saw back in 50 Cent. I'm wondering if it is a color that's specifically tied to Dr. Dre and his people, because he sings about in his song how he still, as in the old days, he does it today, rocks his khakis with a cuff and a crease. So again, I'm still unsure about the khaki, but they do have this army emerging now as we're about to end the Super Bowl show. Dre's received his power transfer, his official transfer from the Olympians back to the Titan gods. So just like it opened up in the show, Dre and Snoop Dogg emerged back on the top of the city, the god level, the ruler level. Again, they're singing the song. It's still DRE. It's still Dre. Snoop Dogg says, "Guess who's back?" It's like saying Dre is back. And they start singing, "I'm representing for them gangsters all across the world. Still hitting them corners in them lolos, girl. Still taking my time to perfect the beat. And I still got love for the streets. It's the DRE." So that's what this song's about. It's ending with DRE still here. He's back. And for the finale, you see everybody rise to the top. Everybody rises to that God level. Mary J Blige comes in, 50 Cent comes in, Eminem, they all rise up to this level. They've done their programming, they've carried out their objectives, and in the end there's that promise of everybody coming up there to that God level, achieving that in this battle. Again, a shot fading out to show the bigger picture. You see the Dre Day flags in black overseeing this army. They're in control of the city. It's all his. It all belongs to them. They did it together, achieved their objective. Again, another shot showing everybody up there at the top level. And then it ends with Dre overlooking the city of Compton. You see he's in black, but you see the gold in the fireworks again. The promise of this Titan bringing back in the golden age of rule. He's overlooking the city of Compton. And so we're ending again. He's on top of the dome. Remember, it began with the dome in the beginning where we saw the underside of the dome, but here he is on top of it, standing on the dome, the grid, that netting of the city, networking the nodes in that realm. And so the camera angle begins to pan out. You see again that gold orb that keeps showing up. And I didn't show you guys, this is totally after the fact, but Mary J Blige, when you went back to her original song, Family Affair, she's just singing her song in the old original video, and you see twice this gold orb just go across the screen. So again, it's tying that same symbol into all of these people's songs. But we see the gold orb here again at the end as we're panning out the camera. It's moving out of the program and the comms and the changes that were just done. And just like we started where we panned in, we're beginning to pan back out. Here's the ley lines of California. Moving out of the program again, panning out farther. There's our red ball, red, white, and blue programming, different sides of the mind. We're beginning to shut down this program as they're backing out. The survivors of the mind control programming, they're beginning to pull back out of all of those realms of the programming, inside and outside influence. It's beginning to shut and close it down. It's reversing the process. And again, it ends, the ball goes back through the black hole. And so here we are back where we started with this cosmic view. We're in the blue programming, which is the here and now, the earth life programming, and the programming has been shut down. The subconscious mind holds the changes that were made, the lineups for the programming, but the front presenter personality is now not aware of what happened. It's shut down for the front presenter personality. They just think they saw a show.